Representative Jim Banks, 3rd District of Indiana, who wrote a powerful article, op-ed, on foxnews.com. Reopen schools or risk losing this generation of American children. Representative Banks, how are you this morning?
Hey, Kurt, good to be with you.
Okay, first I have a bone to pick with you. What's up with having been in the Navy? Why weren't you in a real service like the Army?
Well, I love my time in the Navy, Kurt, and
Village people never sang about us, Representative Banks. Never sang about us. Just say it.
I didn't serve for very long, but the irony, Kurt, is that I joined the Navy and they sent me to Afghanistan. They put me in an Army uniform.
Nice.
And in Afghanistan, they had me work on my job in Afghanistan was work on Army ground-wheeled vehicles. So it almost feels like I did serve in the Army.
Oh my gosh,
so
that was when I got to Cal Army National Guard after my first drill, which was the riots. I came off active duty when I got assigned as the battalion motor officer. So I understand your agony. You know, we could talk PMCS a little later. I want to talk to you about a number of things, but I think this is a hugely important op-ed, a hugely important issue to so many Americans. Where are kids going back to school, and why the heck is this even an issue?
Yeah, Kurt, this is the most important conversation that we need to be having in America today. How are we going to get our kids back to school in the fall? And I've been saying for a couple of months now, the conversation has to shift to away from our schools might not be able to reopen to our schools will reopen, but here is what it's going to take to get there. I have no doubt that it'll be challenging, it'll be costly, but we don't have a choice. The studies show at this point that the distance learning that most kids had over the spring failed, that they didn't retain what they learned. We already know they backslide over the summer, so many of the statistics show that kids are already going to enter the next school year an entire grade level behind. And if we don't get them back in the classroom 5 days a week, then it's going to be even more costlier. Now, I have a lot of schools in my district that are reopening. They've announced plans to give parents options. Almost every survey that they sent out to parents was all of them are almost exactly the same. 80 to 90% of parents said we want to send our kids back to school 5 days a week.
I'm in that group.
I am too. I have 3 daughters at home that are in grade school, and I've seen what they've went through.
And I got 2 kids in high school, and they need to be in high school. That's where they need to be.
There's no doubt about it. That's why I wrote a bill a few weeks ago. Tom Tiffany, the new congressman from Wisconsin, and I introduced the Reopen Our Schools Act. And there are 3 parts of it. I'll go through them really quickly. First and foremost, we give schools the liability protections that they're asking for so that they can reopen with confidence and know that they aren't going to be sued for frivolous reasons by doing so. But secondly, by giving them those protections, we also demand that if you don't that you do reopen in the fall for in the classroom education, but if you don't, then you risk losing your federal grant funding. And while that might seem harsh, we do the third part of our bill is
Representative Banks, if they're not having school, why should we be giving them money?
That's the whole point of the Reopen Our Schools Act. Yeah, you have to ask questions.
There seems to be this idea among Democratic-led student or teachers unions that their compromise is you pay us and we don't work. And I don't know. I'm a simple trial lawyer from Los Angeles. That seems like a really bad deal to me.
Yeah, I've talked to countless teachers, Kurt, and almost every single one of them tell me that their kids are better off in the classroom. So I'm often baffled by the teachers union that doesn't seem to represent the teachers that it professes to represent, because they say something exactly the opposite of what the teachers say. The teachers know better than anyone that these kids belong in the classroom where they can teach them in front of them. There's also the socioeconomic component to this that's often missed in this discussion. You have some kids from the lowest rung of the economic ladder who the best meal that they ever get is in the school. The conditions in their home are such that they're better off in the school where they're surrounded by adults who care for them. And that's being missed in this discussion as well. In fact, you read some of these studies about virtual learning, and you hear the vast number of students who never even show up online for the virtual learning. You hear that from the teachers, and you recognize that we're not just leaving behind a generation of kids. There's a whole sector of kids out there that are falling through the cracks altogether. I think we can speculate what that's going to lead to down the road.
Well, yeah, and there's another factor, and it's a very real factor. A lot of parents, particularly single parents, rely on schools as childcare. Yeah, yes, the kid's getting an education, but this allows mom or dad to go out and work because the kid's in school, and there seems to be some sort of social pressure out there. Not to mention this very obvious fact, but it is a very obvious fact. We need those schools so their parents can do the work they need to support their families. I think we're letting our people down by unnecessary panic about a problem that can be solved through reason and science, calmly and soberly, just like we did in the military. Here's a problem. You don't run around with your hair on fire. You figure it out and you solve it. And frankly, it seems too many people seem to, in some ways, be enjoying this whole pandemic adventure, as if they're living through a not too dangerous dystopian novel. I find it very, very aggravating.
Well, you're hitting the nail on the head. We can't get America back on track and rebuild America if we don't reopen our schools. I mean, it's what's best for kids, but it's also the linchpin to getting our economy back on track as well. And you opened the segment talking about my tweet yesterday about China. China has reopened their schools, and they're already in some STEM categories. Their kids are already ahead of us. So it's not lost on me that while China tries to profit from a pandemic of their own making in a lot of other ways, that another way that they're going to leapfrog us is educationally. We can't allow that to happen.
Well, and you know, the state of education's already the problematic state of education's already been highlighted by the last few weeks, where it's pretty clear we have a generation of people who have absolutely no conception of our history, no conception of our culture, no conception of America's story and its message and its purpose. And then you throw in this pangolin pandemic panic, and it is a recipe for disaster. But let me move on to the solution to the problem, which is coming in November. We've got an election coming up. How do you feel about your chances in Indiana 3 in November?
Well, yeah, I come from a great district from Middle America, working class, a district that supports President Trump with everything that we've got. So. Where I come from, we have the most manufacturing jobs per capita of any district in the country. People have gone back to work. We have a positive outlook about where our economy is heading with Donald Trump at the helm. There's no one out there that I would rather have in the White House to manage the rebuilding of America than Donald Trump, and that's what most of my constituents believe as well. So, but when we survey the rest of the country, to get back to this conversation about reopening our schools, getting our economy back on track, the chaos, havoc, and violence in the streets, it's also not lost to me that the far left radical wing of the Democrat Party, which owns the Democrat Party today, they want to continue to motivate this type of activity to try to create chaos leading up to Election Day, and that's what concerns me more than anything. Well, where I come from, there's no doubt that President Trump is going to receive the vast majority of the votes, but where there's chaos in the streets and violence in the streets, that's people are sitting back. They want it to be over with, and they're trying to figure out how that will happen, and that's why Republicans have to be the party of law and order. That's why we have to bring stability back to this country and show the American people that we're the party to do that. And if we do, then Donald Trump will be reelected. Well, overwhelmingly.
Representative Jim Banks of Indiana, let me ask you a question. And I don't want any hedging. We're military guys. I want you to tell me yes or no. Are the Republicans going to take the House back in November? There's yes, there's no other answer. Give me an answer.
I believe that we can. Yes, we can.
Okay.
We have the candidates around the country to do it. There's no question about it.
Well, there are a lot of great veteran candidates out there. Mike Garcia here in California, a friend of mine. Sean Parnell running against Connor Lamb, another friend of mine. You need to support them. Very quickly, the music's playing. You got 15 seconds. Where can we go to support you in your reelection?
Well, first of all, follow me on Twitter at Rep Jim Banks. You can find me at jimbanks.us as well. Thank you, Kurt.
Hey, thank you very much. Keep fighting the fight for our kids and our country. Representative Jim Banks of Indiana here on the Hugh Hewitt radio program. I'm guest host Kurt Schlichter. We're going to be right back. Stick around.
Don't go anywhere, Kurt. We'll be right back. Time for me to remind you, though, isn't he doing a good job? We always worry about him when he comes in. The studio's a wreck when I come back on Monday. But Colonel Kurt's doing a great job. I need to tell you about the great job that Job Creators Foundation is doing. Their sponsor of the show. And they got together to make sure that they had doctors tell you directly what you had to fear and not fear from the coronavirus. So they created the website flattenthefear.com. JobCreatorsNetwork.com is a very, very trusted source of information and rallying and understanding what's going on in the world. And they decided that the small business community especially needed to hear from experts speaking to them. So flattenthefear.com is their contribution to what's going on right now. And you can trust